So almost turn that voice into the source of challenge could be one thing that I could think
Yeah,
about. Or
yeah.
oh, okay. The thing that
Yeah,
immediately
and
I
giving
thought,
it a label like that's like that guy on the sideline chirping constantly. It's like, oh, okay, like
oh,
this isn't me just being worried about it. Maybe it's like, okay, like this guy,
yeah,
like he's on the sideline saying this, like,
it's usually come from a sense of like anger. So it's like the the Michael Jordan meme of like, and I took that
yeah,
personally.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, uh-huh.
And it's like I can hit
Mhm.
IO flicks, I can hit break throws, I can hit arounds, I can hit hammers, I can like I feel comfortable hucking it. But then
Yeah,
suddenly when I have to throw an open under, I just like I get really in my own head. Like I get really nervous.
mhm,
I don't know what it
yeah,
is. Like I'm just like I'm gonna this up again. One of their teammates on the sideline said like that's too easy, and then it floated, and then my
yeah,
teammate went and like caught up and got the D.
yeah.
When I saw that we got the D, I just immediately responded without even thinking of just like that's too fucking easy. One of the things that I've been working on this past season is really some of the new mental challenges that I've never dealt with before. So that's how I got in contact with Marshall at Spiral Mental Performance. So this conversation was really helpful with trying to work through some of the mental related challenges that I've been faced with this past season. The intention for recording and posting these longer form sessions is really to just kind of document and build in public and show people, if they're interested, what the thoughts and process is for me in my journey of trying to become a better ultimate player and athlete in general. So I hope you enjoy the following episode or just video. I hope to do a lot more things like this in terms of just my journey in playing. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. I appreciate you watching, and yeah, hopefully it's helpful as well. Peace. All right. So you're Dr. K in this scenario, so you start us
Oh
off.
yeah, cool. Well, first of all, my name is Marshall. I'm with Spiral Mental Performance, so we offer mental performance coaching on an individual and team level. So we're here talking with Chris. I think one disclaimer off the start is that a lot of times mental performance consulting can kind of blur a line between therapy at times, especially from practitioner to practitioner, especially people who are dual certified or in training to be dual certified like me. So I want to make a disclaimer that one, like this is not listening to this or implementing concepts from here on your own is not a replacement for therapy, nor am I giving therapy to Chris. If you need help, please consult an actual mental health or medical professional on your own. And while like I'm still guiding Chris through mental performance coaching and concepts, a lot of this stuff is going to be tailored towards him. So what we say here may be helpful, but it's not always going to work for you individually. So just wanted to give that disclaimer off the bat.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, therapy's busted, but also I hope this is equally busted in terms of helping me become a better frisbee player because
Yeah.
mental side is tough.
Yeah. Well, I think the nice part is like, I know a lot of frisbee players who are in therapy, and like I think one thing they said is that sometimes it's nice to talk to someone who like more deeply understands that sports side
Hmm.
because it's such a huge part of your life. Or
Hmm.
even if it's not the biggest thing in your life, it's something that like is such a huge source of joy in your life. And
Yeah.
so, or ideally is. So in that sense, it's just like a big part of you.
Yeah. I mean, I found it too, even in the physio sense. Like before I had a physiotherapist, that was awesome.
Hmm.
But then the difference was quite noticeable, not out of skill related things, but just out of context related things when I switched to my current physio, who also
Hmm.
plays frisbee and is an excellent practitioner. It was just night and
Yeah.
day in terms of the immediate understanding of like the types of moves or movements from the physical
Hmm.
sense. And I'd imagine that it is similar
And
from
also,
from a mental performance
yeah.
sense.
And also just the physical demand, like of an
Yeah.
actual tournament.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know if there were maybe like do you have any direction that you kind of like to start out going with, or do you want me to just kind of yap about
Yeah, yeah, sure. So typically beforehand, I do like a small consultation with players who are interested in talking with us, whether
Hmm.
through that's like a formal intake survey or just like hopping on the phone with them
Yeah.
and like get kind of understanding where they're coming from. But usually, like I want to get a picture of like where they think they are and like what they're struggling with mentally on the field. So with like a lot of people, that tends to be low confidence, negative self-talk, um, performance anxiety. That probably takes up like 80% of it.
Yeah.
But like it can be really anything.
Okay. So no, it's I think this is great timing too because this is the mental side is one piece where it's been a very different challenge considering my current circumstances that I've found. And I think there are elements of what you mentioned in terms of negative self-talk that I have a bit
Hmm.
going on. But it's like it feels like a very unique scenario or not unique scenario per se, but it's a new scenario for me. Like I've never kind of gone through this before. So
Yeah.
I'll give a bit more context maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah.
How is it? How's it new for you?
So yeah, I'll just kind of maybe go more into context about like what I've been experiencing recently, which is so I my arc. I'll start maybe handful of years back with like my arc as a
Hmm.
frisbee player, and I think I've always when I first started out playing ultimate, it was like in high school, and then I was always a relatively stronger handler. I was not very athletic at
Okay.
all. So I
Yeah.
think one of the first challenges or things that I had to deal with when I was thinking about the mental side of the game was when I went to university. I went to a school that was relatively not as well. Like they very rarely got experienced ultimate players, and I was
Hmm.
entering in my first year in a position where I was like I was essentially already being like at first tryout, even before first tryout, because they knew where I was coming from and the teams that I applied on. They're like, I was confident I would be on the team and I was confident that I would be like a big piece on the team, which was
Hmm.
in stark difference to, I think, my 4 years of playing juniors when growing up. Because the 4 years of juniors were great, but I was always wanting to make the top team from BC, where I grew up
Yeah.
in Vancouver, but I never made the top team. Funnily enough, like the
Hmm.
coach of the top team from Vancouver at that time was the same coach that I had all throughout high school, essentially, or like he was the coach of
Hmm.
the senior team. And like the reason I got cut, one of the things that he told me was like, even though you performed well at the tryout for the top team, like based on what I knew about you from the past, like I didn't think I was basically competing for like the one of the last spots in the top team in my
Hmm.
grade 12 year, and then I got cut. And I appreciate it now that he was candid with me, but at the time I also like it. I didn't have any other really major competitive sport experience before, so it
Yeah.
really hit me when I didn't make the team, despite other people saying like, "Oh, you should have made the team" and things like that. Like, I don't think I had too much of a sense or a rock or a sense of internal confidence, let's say, at that point in
Yeah.
time. And then, yeah, basically going from very low self confidence, but again, relatively skilled as a handler because that's what I played all the time, but I was never really super
Hmm.
athletic from playing other sports. And then I was suddenly plopped into a situation where I was like, they're telling me, you're the guy. Like, you're going to be our
Yeah.
savior.
Yeah.
You're going to
Hmm.
be like our fucking goat. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh shit, okay, I have to perform. And I
Yeah.
found in that first year of playing, like, I just love telling the story too. So before I hop into that, this is like the fun thing. I
Okay.
remember like when I showed up to the first tryout, we were playing like scrims or like certain scenarios, and I think one of the scenarios that they did up in tryouts was like, oh, you're a handler playing against a zone or like a I think we were
Hmm.
scrimming and the other team zoned. So I just like I had no fear, I think, at that point in those sort of circumstances because there were no consequences. I was like basically on the
Yeah.
team already. So I was kind of like enjoying the like I'm the dude kind of personality. Like I had a super long leash. So I was like,
Yeah.
shit. I was like a coffin corner picking it up on our end zone. I just like chuck a crossfield hammer to the person that's usually like open on the far
Yeah.
side. It gets caught, but then they don't move it up from there. So the cup actually catches up and sets the mark on that person again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I end up cutting straight behind them, getting a dump straight back, and then hammering it again to the far corner and like the score. And
Yeah.
then I walked off the field, and then the coaches or captains were just like, "Yeah, so can you not like hammer it? Because it kind of like destroys the point of what we're trying to like practice or like test." And I was like, "Oh, my bad." But like, I just had such that was like such a yeah fun time for me
Yeah.
or a good experience. But yeah, like I think the first challenge really happened during that first year when we started going to tournaments, where again I was
Hmm.
looked at as I should be the guy to carry,
Yeah.
and I realized that it's a big in part to some of my teammates and friends, and I was honestly I could go into it, but maybe I'll pause or I won't for the sake of I've been yapping or I will yap for a while,
I think
but like
yeah.
oh
This is. I mean, it's interesting. I think like, going back to the question of like, what do you think you're dealing with now? I think it's helpful to just like finish that out or like, bridge that gap. Because
Yeah.
right now I have a good picture of like where you started. So I
Okay,
think like
cool.
getting that middle to end part is going to be helpful for
Okay,
me.
cool. I just changed something in my audio, so hopefully it's, anyways, we'll cut this out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, um, I think the, the biggest challenge that I found after that first year was when I would make a mistake because I put so much pressure on myself, I would
Mhm.
like get in my own head and then have the
Yeah.
negative self-talk, and then it would just spiral. It would be like I would think
Yeah.
negative thoughts and then I would make more mistakes and think
Yeah.
negative thoughts and
Yeah.
just
And then
crumble.
it just becomes like all consuming at that
Yeah.
point.
And after first year, that's when I learned some of the mindfulness kind of practices, just skills.
Hmm.
So it was the outside of practice or before practice and outside of even playing, just like at home. It would be the breathing and the focused attention on my breath. And I
Hmm.
found that that was extremely helpful for
Yes.
essentially getting the awareness of where my thoughts were, so that the
Hmm.
next times, and it still is very helpful where my negative self-talk maybe creeps in or I make a mistake, my still gut reaction at some points is the negative self-talk. But then
Yeah.
because of the skill of the being aware of my thoughts, that kind of automatically happens too, and I notice it and I'm like, okay, I can make a conscious decision of, is this helping me or not?
Yes.
And then
Hmm.
I can direct it better. So it's still not amazing, but it's manageable now. It doesn't
Yeah.
downward spiral me. So that was the
Hmm.
context for, I think, the maybe turning point one after first year. And I
Yeah.
think I've been doing relatively well since then. My main challenges over the past, I guess, since first year now, it's been 7 or 8 years of playing.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I think it's served me well in terms of that mindfulness practice, just as I've
Hmm.
leveled up as a player. So I went from, kind of honestly, when I look back at my film in early university, I was fine. Like I made the mid-level club team for adult during my second year of adults here in
Hmm.
Toronto, called the Grand Trunk. So it was like the GOAT is the main open team
Yeah.
from
Hmm.
here in
I'm
Toronto,
I'm
and
familiar with Go.
okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one of the B teams at the time, or still right now, is like GT. It's like the feeder team.
Hmm.
So I made that in my second year of playing adults. And then I basically kind of stayed around that level or that team. I never really cracked the roster, the GOAT roster or the Toronto Rush, the pro team, until I think my first year playing those teams was like 2021. So maybe after like 4 or 5 years of playing and then just
Hmm.
improving around that B team level. But I think that was really helpful for me too, because again, I went from somebody that was like just had context in juniors to now I feel like, okay, I have the field awareness skills, defensive skills, physicality, ulti
Yeah.
IQ,
You had
throws.
time to learn.
Yeah. And when I made that leap to the I was GOAT PR and then Toronto, like on the Rush for the first year. I think
Hmm.
that was 2020. Um, so that was the first time that I had played both of those teams, and that was a big leap in skill. I think that I struggled a bit because I went from suddenly like being the top seven on the B team consistently
Yeah.
to
And then you,
being,
you go back down again.
the bottom seven on these teams, or maybe on the Rush like the middle of the pack or like ever on that first year. And then I even then though I don't think there were too many mental challenges that I remember. At least I think the main ones that I was dealing with at the time were still related to physicality. Like the main problems were just I would go out, play on the Rush. Our team relatively wasn't as skilled. Like we were getting destroyed. I think that season
Hmm.
we won one or two. So even in those scenarios, I just knew that my physical attributes in terms of cardio and mainly cardio, I would say is just like one of the baseline things was just not up to the level that I needed to be at to play at
Hmm.
a even higher level. But that didn't bother me mentally. I was like, okay, it's a skill gap. Like I just
Yeah.
need to get
Yeah.
better.
And a lot of that is because there's just more certainty.
Yeah.
Uncertainty breeds anxiety for most, for everyone. Um, and so when there's just less uncertainty, there's just less to worry about mentally.
Yeah. Um, and I'd say the now turning point too. So now the context was like after my first year of playing, because I
Hmm.
went from I would basically went that was my first year. When I was playing on the GOAT practice roster plus the Toronto Rush, I went from essentially the previous year practicing twice a week and maybe some weekend games for the span of 3 or 4 months for playing on GT, to having 4 practices a week plus weekend games
Okay.
consistently.
Yeah. Wow. So that's double.
Yeah, so more than double essentially, I would say, because of the intensity as well,
Hmm.
and like just the headspace that I need to be in. Physically, I think I kept up in terms of like just like injury wise, I didn't have anything. I don't think that was too bothering. But at the end of the season, I had basically in the last game of the Rush season, uh, my team physio Andrew, who was awesome, he made the call. Like I was just saying, like I tried to run, I was having a lot of pain on my Achilles,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
he gave me like the cold cream or whatever to try to, I
Hmm.
think, numb it a little bit. He taped me up, and I tried running, and it was still painful. He was like, "For the sake of your safety, I'm gonna make the call that you shouldn't play." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Okay, that's fine. That makes sense." And I think that being 3 years ago, I think it's only now that I've really gotten to a point where it's like the past 3 years, I feel like I've plateaued as a player. So that's where a lot of the
Yeah.
mental things have come in, where it's like some
Hmm.
of the people and players, like 3 years ago, I think at some point one of my teammates or friends had mentioned, like, of me and my peers who are +1, -1 age,
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
years, we were all around the same level. Like we all made that
Yeah.
same kind
And
of
they've
like
gotten
jump.
to advance.
Yeah. Yeah, 3 years ago we had made that jump around the same time, and then for the past 3 years, again, I'm very happy for them. They've made strides to making Canada and like playing key pieces on Russian
Hmm.
Goat, and it's like for me to see that is, one, awesome. I'm super happy for them, super glad, and then two, it's like it's just tough because now I
Yeah.
am
Of
no
course.
longer seeing them, because it's like usually after
Yeah.
practice you hang out with them, you grab food, you
Hmm.
like go just catch up. Now it's like I just never see them. I hardly
Yeah.
see them, and it's like not
Yeah.
their fault. It's not my fault, but it still was a challenge of maybe realizing that and coming to terms with that. Like that's okay,
Yeah.
and like it's not anyone's fault. It's just like
Yeah.
I want to be able to play and hang out with the people
Yeah.
that I've played with for 5 years,
Yeah.
and like
It still
I want to get
sucks,
back to it. Yeah.
like, and like, like seeing their names on like the roster
Hmm.
announcements and like seeing their highlights, like it's great, but it's also a reminder of where you are. And like that
Yeah.
always stings.
Yeah. So there's like that as a tough mental piece that I've had to think about. There's also the piece of like there's all these younger, newer players that are like they've made
Yes. Hmm.
U24s, they're on the come up, and it's
Yep.
like I've taught some of them, helped some of them out when they were on the B team, and I'm like, again, super happy for their come up, but I'm also like, I know from a coaching and player selection standpoint for these teams, like I want to play on Team Canada still, I want to play on the top club teams, whatever. It's like when you're picking players, one of the factors is age. Like if you're the same level player, same skill set, but then the other dude's like, because again, I'm competing against open players for spots usually. It's like if the other dude's 5 years younger than me in the same skill set, you're going to take the dude that's 5 years younger because they just have more runway and time for to develop and on the team. So that's been a like mental piece that I've had to think about. I don't think that gives me too much anguish anymore. Like I've thought about these things, context to mention. Um,
Hmm.
I think the most, yeah, sorry, that this has all been an update in terms of things that I've thought about
Yeah.
recently. I think the most recent reflections that I've had currently going on are, so I've been playing for Hound, which is one of, I would say, the other regional B teams in Toronto, and
Hmm.
I'm super happy with the team. Like everybody is, it's probably the most supportive team that I've been on in terms of just the personalities throughout. It's an opportunity. I feel so trusted, like so supported. Like the examples that I can give are, we've gone to some tournaments. I've been put in a position where I am the center handler, and then
Hmm.
I've honestly just been, because I've been, I think, out of it for the past 2 3 years because of the Achilles injury.
Yeah.
Basically been playing like injured the past 2 3 years. Now that I've made strides over the past year with physio, I've kind of gotten back to the point where I'm basically playing healthy. Like before I would
Hmm.
play a league game and then I'd be like hobbling the next day, and like
Yeah.
it'd
For
be
like the
tough for me to
next
walk.
couple days.
Yeah. So tournament was like out of the question. Now I'm like,
Hmm.
I played 3 back-to-back tournaments over the weekends, and like on the Monday, Tuesday, I can basically walk. I can go to physio, I can go to whatever. I know what helps me.
Yeah.
So I'm back to the point now where it's like, okay, I'm back to where I was without being injured, except still dealing with some of the recovery stuff. But again, it's not
Yeah.
as big a factor anymore of holding me back.
Yeah.
But the challenge that came from that is I was playing injured before in a headspace where it was basically like, I had to basically relearn how to play over the past 2 3 months with a healthier
Hmm.
body, where it's like the pace of play is faster. I need to be able to react faster. I need to be able to hit things in tempo faster. It's just like I'm not on
Yeah.
beat because again, I was playing injured before. And
Yeah.
then the other thing too is throwing while tired. It's like when I'm injured, I just wouldn't get as tired because
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
stopping mainly because of injury. Now I'm stopping because I'm
Yeah.
tired. And then the throws, the execution, that's what's new. To kind of
hmm
wrap everything up for everything that I've talked about, the turning point too, in terms of the new mental thing that I've had to deal with, is like having to be okay with knowing I used to be really good. I used to be solid in these situations. I need to learn how to like be okay, more okay. It's like a weird new feeling of I am not good right now. That's okay. I'm learning how to be good. And again, the situation is nice because my teammates are supportive. Like I'll turf an open underthrow when I'm throwing up wind. And it's like, okay, I knew 3 years ago me, I could hit that. But now me
hmm
right now, because I haven't had
Yeah.
reps in tournament while I'm tired, it's like I'm just messing it up. So I need to go get reps. Like that's just an
Yeah.
acknowledgement piece. That's fine. But then building that confidence comes from I think the reps, which I need to get more of. But then also it's like the just just dealing with that thought of like when I mess up a throw. Like it's so I noticed in the most recent tournament, it's like there's no wind, there's no whatever, but it's an open under. And it's like I can hit
hmm
IO flicks, I can hit breakthrows, I can hit arounds, I can hit hammers, I can like I feel comfortable hucking it. But then
Yeah.
suddenly when I have to throw an open under, I just like I get really in my own head. Like I get really nervous. I
hmm
get really I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. Like I'm just like I'm gonna fuck this up again.
hmm
And I think a part of that is probably going and throwing a lot of open unders to somebody cutting under, which I have not done yet, and I need to go
Yeah.
do. But then yeah, I wonder if there was a mental side to that as
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
because that was
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, the first thing you said that really pops in my mind is something that I tell my clients all the time, which is if I tell you not to think of a polar bear, you are going to think of a polar bear, right? When
yeah
it's like, shit, it's an up and side under. Like whatever you do, like you cannot turn this over because it's like the easiest throw in the world. Like
yeah
that is like the exact opposite of like the script you want of like, oh, an open side under, I'm gonna throw that. Like
yeah
that's typically the or even like for throws, like, oh, an open side under. Someone got open and beat their defender. Like, that's great. Like, we're just gonna do that. I don't have to do any work.
yeah
Um, so I think like you're right in that there's a competence and training part of that of like with this stuff, I'm not gonna make you throw better or like run faster or jump higher. It's just that like I think there's the self reflection piece which you have down is like I do need to throw more and like remember that I need to train while tired and like be
mm,
ready for these scenarios because like I was simply not practicing those for 2 years, which is a lot of time. Um, but then yes, I definitely think there's work on um, basically ways to be prepared so that your mind doesn't hijack you in those moments where you have the ability to execute, but it's your mind that's stopping you and not your throwing ability.
yeah. I think so. The one thing that pops to mind is when I was talking to it about my teammate, and I think I was really in my own head. One thing that helped was he was just like, just pick a shoulder, just pick a shoulder and throw it to it. And I think that
Yeah.
that was almost like that makes a lot of sense based on what you said of like if me thinking don't mess it up is what's causing me to mess it up. So
Okay.
the thing
Mhm.
that I kind of just have to do is just like again, just pick a shoulder throw. Just pick a shoulder throw and get reps of doing that. And then so I'm in game where it's like I'm just not thinking. Like that's the goal that I need to try to maybe work
Yeah.
towards. Is that
Yeah. For sure.
okay?
I have a process that I've started to use with some of my athletes as I've like, started to do this more and picked up the patterns and like put things together.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100% like effective like process related goal setting is like one of those key parts. It's part of it.
Yeah.
Or like one of the key cogs in overcoming that of like we need to be able to shift our mind away from that like completion turnover outcome, which like it does matter like in a high level ultimate game. It really does matter if you can if you can or can't hit like those basic throws,
Yeah.
but that's not really relevant because right now what you need to focus on is like the x's and o's of execution.
Yeah.
So um like if we peel back that first layer, like one of the first antidotes behind that isn't going to be like let's set effective process goals here. So for throwing, that might be okay, like pick a shoulder or um on some teams I've been on, it's been like make sure I'm balanced. So like making sure your footwork is correct when you're throwing,
Mm.
versus thinking about the completion. And then you can also see it on defense too, where people I think it's probably one of the biggest things, but like people get so worried about getting beat in a certain way that they then forget how to actually defend correctly, like using their footwork and positioning, orbiting principles, right?
Yeah.
Like when that fear hijacks, like it kind of just like removes all that rational execution part.
Yeah. Like when you the because I've experienced that too. It's like when you're playing the best defense, you're not really thinking. You're kind of just in flow. And that was the main thing that I tried to learn mindfulness for or realize that it was helpful
Hmm.
for. But yeah, what I'm thinking about on defense, like, oh, I have to defend this thing. Usually I get cooked the other way. Or just like
Yeah,
I'm not playing good defense if I'm just thinking just
yeah,
stop this,
hmm,
just stop this.
yeah. And I think it's pretty interesting because you know, every good defensive team has a defensive game plan. So inherently, you are going into a game being like, there are certain things that like I have a job for in my assignment. Like if
Yeah.
I'm guarding X person, it might be like don't let this person beat you deep because like
Yeah.
they're like 6'6" and they're really tall. You know, like that might be an actual thing that some defenders have to deal with, and like that in a sense is an outcome. But the key for them is going to be right breaking that down into process related actionable chunks, right? Saying like don't get knee deep is really it's really vague and that leaves so much room for interpretation in your mind versus
Hmm.
if you say like on the open side contain under whether it's like guarding in a certain stance or making sure like you're having help over the top, right? These are things that are like things you can focus on in the moment that you can always control. You can't always control whether or not you get beat deep or not. Like things will happen sometimes
Yeah.
even like if you're in position perfectly. So a lot of times you're just finding those process goals that yeah, that are always in control.
Hmm. Okay. So is there anything else that you would want to talk about or dig more into based on I know I was yapping for
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious on the thread you had about like when you see that window and your brain's just going like, oh, I can't turn this over or whatever. I'm kind of curious, like what happens in your mind preceding, following that moment, like right before, during, after, and then if you've also seen that happen in other moments on the field, not just like with throwing, for example, or in
Oh,
different scenarios.
that's interesting. I think so when it's when it's preceding, if I know that the play is like going to be an open side undercut in the past, it was like I would feel a bit of anxiousness. I would get in my own I could
Yeah.
tell my body was tense because there were the solution that I would find some of the times was like again the mindfulness. I would take a breath and I could tell my shoulders drop. I was just tense.
Yeah. Hmm.
In the moment, I think there was still that probably bit of physical tension and even mental tension of like just anxiousness. And
Yeah.
then afterwards, after I throw it, it's like just very like hyper aware of the result. Like I see the throw come out and I'm like, so if it's
Yeah.
anything but perfect, and most of the times it is not perfect, like and it was like it's not like uncatchable, but like some of them might have been a turf, some of them might have been
Yeah.
just like to the wrong shoulder or like weird speed
Hmm.
or like weird angle. I'm like immediately it's judgment. It's like like that's the feeling. Like like
Yeah.
a oh yikes, that wasn't what I
Hmm.
wanted. I know that's not optimal, but like whatever, fuck it. And then I just try to continue playing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
does it relate to other times? I don't think I have that sense of anxiousness or anxiety or nervousness literally anywhere else on the field.
Mhm.
I've felt it in discrete moments where I'm trying to think like if it's a really windy game. It's like sometimes in the past, really windy game, I'm like on the UFA AUDL field getting double teamed. I'm like a little bit of the anxiousness, but honestly,
Yeah.
throwing the open under is like the most consistent thing that's happened recently.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, what you said all makes so much sense because, right, if we take that process goal and we peel back another layer, so like if you're setting goals, but like for some reason, like your mind's still getting in the way of like executing or being able to focus on them correctly, like then we start to peel back how we actually like manage our relationship with those thoughts. Um, you mentioned mindfulness, which like I think is really great. Um, I like agree, and I really love the emphasis you put on breathing because I think people really forget about the importance of breathing, part of which is because it's really boring. But like the simple and really plain truth is that our breathing is our most direct like lever we can pull on our parasympathetic system, nervous
Mm.
system, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically like so your sympathetic nervous system is designed to hype you up. So like fight or flight, get in action mode. Your parasympathetic nervous system is it's designed to get you to calm down, rest, like get your body in like recovery mode sometimes. And your breath is one of the most direct levers that you pull on that. And so like being able to control your breathing is probably one of the first like simple steps I take with some of the athletes because it's like, oh, I'm thinking this and like I'm trying this. And it's like, have you have you actually like, taken a deep breath yet? So it's good that you've done that. But
Mm.
back to my original thought. I think a lot of what you're talking about related to like the relationship with the thoughts is that I know I mentioned a bit of negative self-talk in the beginning, and I think it's really important to like validate that negative self-talk is like completely normal. And in and it's not something we can or should seek to completely eliminate because it's a natural part of our brain. Like if you think about it this way, it's almost like a protective mechanism. Our
Mm.
brains evolved to recognize threats and then avoid those threats or find ways to which like we don't fall prey to those. And part of that is our mind telling us like, hey, like probably don't engage in that or like maybe this is not a good idea.
Mm.
Um, and as we've modernized, the threats have gotten smaller. Like throwing it in completion isn't exactly a huge threat in our life, but our brain's old, clunky, and it's really smart, but it also takes a lot of shortcuts. So it's gonna see it that way. And so um, when we find that our goal setting doesn't work, what we then have to do is just start like changing our relationship with those negative thoughts if we aren't able to um, cope with them effectively using goals. So we talk a lot about making room for those in your brain. So if we think of like what you said earlier about spiraling out of control, if the negative self-talk and like the doubts and the hesitation and the second guessing, if that like takes up this amount of space in your mind, if you if you just try and deny and suppress it, then this is the only thing your mind can think of, right? And then so your mind is entirely fixated on this. This is like your only capacity in the moment.
Yeah.
Versus if we learn to not just inherently try and suppress or reject what our mind's saying, and instead just like create more room in our brain.
Mm.
That way, then we can move these thoughts around or label them and like actually change how much we listen to them and actually, you know, listen to their validity in a sense
Mm.
because I think like it's there's a real power in affirming the validity of those because again like what we talked about, you shouldn't be throwing incompletions all the time, you should be completing basic throws, but that's just a protect right that's just a little protective voice in your head just speaking that and it's telling you, oh, like maybe don't throw that. And you have to be able to listen to that and be like, yeah, like that's a real thing. And then the real magic is figuring out how to like disarm that voice.
Yeah.
So for some people it's just like creating like talking sarcastically or like adding a lot of levity to that voice to be like, yeah, yeah, okay, like, like you said that, whatever, like go sit in the corner and like watch me do this. And for other people, it's like it can be more serious of like, okay, like I get this, like it's that protective mechanism, but like we know it's coming. So like um having almost a routine to like acknowledge, but then move on from those in a sense.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if you could help me connect these dots too, because I think that
Yeah.
I really like that analogy of instead of like if this is the headspace that it's taking up, if you
Yeah.
focus and think about it, all your mind is going to
Yeah.
be thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not the
Yeah.
goal.
You don't succeed by making that thought smaller. You succeed by by expanding your mind
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and giving yourself more agency over it.
Yes. I really I think the way like visualizing that makes a lot of sense to me. I think it connects to
Yes.
my thought process before too of like
Hmm.
there's like some automatic thoughts and then there's your ability to notice those thoughts. And I think that's what
Hmm.
my mindfulness has helped me get a better handle on of like noticing.
Yeah.
But it's like now the next step or one other tool is like, okay, you can notice it, but then from the
What
perspective
do you do
of
with it?
where do we put it now?
Yeah.
And I think the
Yeah.
thing that I would love to pick your brain on is it's like somewhat related because when you're talking about like how to deal with the thoughts now, like what voice,
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on how would you suggest choosing what to maybe play with if or given the context that I have also found in the past couple tournaments that when I lock in almost like I hit a flow
Yeah.
state or playing on the field,
Hmm.
it's usually come from a sense of like anger. So it's like the you know the Michael Jordan meme of like and I took that
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's like
Yeah.
I always thought that like that wasn't the voice in my head and like I didn't really know if that was the healthiest thing to do. I also have the perspective of again like whatever you need to use just
Yeah.
use it.
Hmm.
But like the moments where I have locked in on offense or defense, it had come from like I'll give you the two examples that I remember distinctly from the tournament. One was I was on the sideline. We were playing a game
Hmm.
against a team that I think we were beating pretty easily. And then a huck went up like from the other team to a wide open person deep, but it was floaty. But
Yeah.
as soon as the throw went up, one of their teammates on the sideline said like that's too easy, and then it floated, and then my
Yeah.
teammate went and like caught up and got the D,
Yeah.
and then
Hmm.
I don't know why, but like in that moment, I was just pissed at the fact that I think I was maybe like dealing with my own stuff, like trying to get better and like frustrated with my own. But when he said like
Yeah.
that's too easy, like it kind of pissed me off. And then when I saw that we got the D, I just immediately responded without even thinking. I'm just like that's too fucking easy, and I just got
Yeah.
pissed. And then the next
Hmm.
few points on the field, I was just like I had a certain amount of intensity and like I was in a zone of like this is
Yeah.
the I really want to keep playing like this if I could
Hmm.
all the time. That's a
Yeah.
goal that I've wanted to work on too from the mental side of being
Hmm.
able to like consciously almost like lock into that zone more
Yes.
often. The
Yeah.
other moment that I had on the field was like we were all playing a long point against a pretty solid team. I think this was at Ontario Regionals. And
Hmm.
then I'd gotten a D, I think. And then we were playing offense and I was tired. I was just like gassed from the point.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
throw went up to me into space, but I just wasn't expecting it. And if I laid out and was maybe mentally locked in, I would have laid out in the moment and caught it.
Yeah.
But then I just didn't. And we turned it over and I was again just pissed at myself. But then we got off the I think it was the next point or later point,
Mm.
or it might have been the same one. But then I just went on the point where I was on O line, so then we were playing and I was just making cuts. Like it was the situation was I had made a juke cut from the reset position. Disc was on the fourth sideline, and I think the thrower made a break throw up the line. So it was like
Yeah.
in front of me, but it was because
Yeah.
he had to
Hmm.
break the mark. It was a little bit in front of me, so I would have had to
Yeah.
bid, and it
Hmm.
was just no thought. Like I just bid, caught it, got up,
Yeah.
threw the next throw, and again that was like the me me dropping it before was because mentally I wasn't in it. I think because
Yeah.
I didn't react and just jump
Hmm.
instinctively. Maybe I was super tired too. But the next opportunity that I got, I just immediately just
Yeah.
caught it.
You were primed to be
Yes.
ready for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives context for like if the it feels like from those experiences the voice
Yeah.
has some element of anger. And I think I've
Yes.
always
That's.
yeah, I'm aware of myself too that
Hmm.
I've viewed anger at least as like in the past
Hmm.
unconsciously I viewed anger and like jealousy or just like those kinds of realms of emotions as like F tier. Like I just don't want to feel them. Like if I felt them, I
Yeah.
would just ignore them.
Hmm.
I wouldn't label it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, I'm not feeling this. I'd push it away. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I recognize that they have purpose. They are just
Hmm.
an emotion, a signal. And like even with that context now when I think about it, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about using anger as like my my
Yeah.
trigger. But yeah,
Yes.
that's I don't know. Can you any things
Yeah,
stand out
I
there?
have I have several trains of thought.
Okay.
I want to touch on the flow state stuff and then circle back to what we previously talked about with like the relationship with the thought.
Yeah.
Um so one, there's a lot of interesting research about just states of peak performance in general, and like flow state is not the only one.
Hmm.
And like what you're describing sounds less like a flow state and more like a clutch state where there's a much higher level of focus and intensity, which is
Ooh,
pretty cool. And we can
interesting.
get to that later.
Yeah.
Um, but
Clutch state.
the thing that stands out to me a lot is that yes, there's anger, but to me, what I'm seeing is also a state of challenge where you feel like personally challenged to do something where someone says like that's too easy and yeah you feel mad but it's like that's a challenge for me to do, and like I'm gonna rise to that.
Mm.
And I think like that can be like for you knowing that that's like a huge success for you. I think that can be a way to explore like how you like yeah how you manage those thoughts or how you respond to them internally. Like and this is like the part where it's really unique to individuals. I read a book around this concept 2 weeks ago actually, about like I don't know if it says it, but it's called like courage over confidence. But
Um,
they gave a lot of really good examples, and also like I've worked with a bunch of athletes who like had a lot of performance anxiety, and a lot of it was just like managing how they like find a way to talk to and label that voice. Because I think an important realization is understanding that like yes, like we're our own entity, and like when we're saying stuff like that's within our own head, but also we don't have to treat it as if like we're the one having those thoughts. Like
mm.
we can give those a label. For some people it might be just like imagining that like overprotective, really negative voice just like as a little kid, or like a really annoying fan or
Yeah.
someone else. And like when you imagine it that way, it makes right then all of a sudden you've labeled it, you've put power over it. And then like for some people, it's just like you add a ton of levity. So it's like, yeah, like, okay, like cool, a little kid saying this, like who cares? Um, on the challenge end, to me, like you mentioned Michael Jordan, and like I don't know if this is gonna work for you, but the funniest thing to me that stood out was like that Michael always like took challenges super personally.
Mm.
And like on the court, and like he's a notorious gambler. Where like he would make bets with players. So like I'm gonna score 40 like on your player tonight. Like that sort of thing. Just be like this happened. Like someone like didn't say hi to me at a restaurant post game. Like okay, like it's on. Like having like almost like taking on that sort of like okay, like let's that I see how that is.
Yeah.
Like when someone's like, when that voice is like, okay, like like you better not throw a turnover, and instead of being like, oh, like, instead of like listening to that, it can just be like, oh, like, okay, like, all right, like I see how it is. Like we're betting about this. And then like
Mm.
that can turn into a challenge for you instead of like this fear.
So almost turn that voice into the source of challenge could be one thing that I could think
Yeah,
about. Or
yeah.
oh,
Hmm.
okay. The thing that
Yeah.
immediately
And
I
giving
thought,
it a label, like that's like that guy on the sideline chirping constantly. It's like, oh, okay, like
oh
this isn't me just being worried about it. Maybe it's like, okay, like fuck this guy,
yeah,
like he's on the sideline saying this, like who gives a damn? We're in fact we're gonna take that and like we're gonna bring it back and like show them that he's wrong.
yeah. But so okay, I don't know if this is connected to, but maybe it just like came to mind when you were talking about the difference between I guess kind of the zone versus clutch, being like clutch
Yeah.
moment versus zone
Hmm.
moment. And like I'm not sure which one this might fall under, but I also remember that in a lot of times when I'm in a position where we're almost like playing a team that I think most people expect us to play really poorly against.
Yeah, you're expecting to lose.
Yeah, where like most people, I think in the if they're unconfident or just like in the same, like again, I label that voice in my head of like self doubt
Mhm.
as being unconfident. I would imagine like a person like that against a team that they have like no odds against, maybe more often than not, they'd respond with like, oh shit, like like I don't know. Actually, I don't know how the average person would respond, but like maybe a good chunk of them would say like would not do well in that moment. I've
Yeah.
felt like in the past, I've always done extremely well in those moments. Like I
Mhm.
find it like yeah, like you mentioned taking it as a challenge. Like I've always thought like, oh yo, like we're playing against a team that like we have no chance against. Like I'm just gonna I'm like I'm
Yeah.
so
Like
locked
why
in
not
mentally in
just
these
try our
games.
best?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's really interesting to me too, because it's like the headspace that I am in is I'm taking on the challenge. Like I want like
Hmm.
give yeah, like this we have no chance. Okay, cool. Like there's no
Yeah.
there's
Hmm.
a challenge in front of me and also there's like no consequence that I'm scared of. I think is like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Or
two things
even
that I'm
like
thinking.
less of there's no chance, right? Because eventually if you hit your goals as your player, you're going to be in games that matter. Or
Yeah.
like there actually is uncertainty. So it's also like, oh, like, yeah, like you're like, me to my head, like, yeah, you're saying that like I could fail and mess up here. It's like, hey, like cool, like we're gonna take that, like we're gonna take that and run with it. We're just gonna go.
Mm. So sorry, what you're saying is like if I'm trying, like it may not be a helpful strategy to deal with, assuming I get in again in the situations where I'm like playing against teams where there are stakes or like in games where there are stakes,
Hmm.
like that thought
Yeah.
process may not be helpful. So what's the change? Or what is the
And so instead of just being like, oh, I have like we have no shot at this, like let's just like why not let's just go out and try like that is an effective strategy against teams that like are really good, for example.
yeah.
Um, right? Like if you're going up against, like go to regionals, like why not? But like there's also going to be games where like simply put, you are expected to win,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like you really don't know and it's a coin flip. And so in those scenarios, you do have to embrace the uncertainty of that moment a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that as a counterexample are now that I'm thinking about it, are situations where I have found a lot of difficulty in, where it's like I'm in a
Yeah.
position where I'm expected to perform, and it's
Yeah.
like we're in a position or a team. Like at regionals too, we played against GT, and like in pool
Hmm.
play, we beat them by quite a bit. I think it was like 15-8 maybe.
Yeah.
And then we went to play them again in like the third place game to go, and we went to universe with them. I think at halftime we were
Hmm.
down like two. And I remember being in
Yeah.
that game again. I'm still, I think, center handler on that point, and it's like, oh
Hmm.
shit, I'm feeling the anxiousness. I'm feeling the nervousness.
Yeah.
Like I'm feeling the pressure. I was not performing in a state of like
Hmm.
challenge. It was like I'm scared. I'm playing from a sense of
Yeah, you're
anxiousness.
trying, right? It's the old saying, like you're playing to not lose instead of playing to win.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So like,
Yeah, but
what do I do there?
yeah. Um. So I think we go back to that thought process managing, but if we go through that the full step, like I mentioned, right? So one are like at the top layer is like the process goals into the stuff to focus on. So like
Yeah.
your handler in that game, it's like, all right, we're focusing on like throwing to the correct shoulder, like scanning the field, and maybe it's like setting up my reset cuts on time. Like those are my three process goals to
Mm,
perform well in this game.
mm,
And then like beyond that, it's like, okay, managing the thoughts that come up, right? Taking that personal kind of challenge approach, right? You treating the voice like it's someone like chirping at you on the sidelines, someone
mm.
who, right? Someone who's really like an opponent who's almost like challenging you and pissing you off a little bit, but like to make you better. And you're choosing to, right? You're choosing that because you want to prove to yourself that like you're capable of that challenge.
Yeah.
And then at the very bottom layer, which we didn't talk about, and we're kind of getting to now, is knowing when to expect this to come up. Because I think we've talked about this, but that voice, that anxiousness, that doubt, it's usually the same types of doubts and thoughts. It's like the same pattern
Yeah.
that happens. So like we know what it's going to say. The nice part is we also know when it's going to happen. It's going
Mm,
to happen in
yeah.
moments of high stakes and moments of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so once we know that, like that's almost like the magic switch of like instead of now like you're fearing you don't know when these thoughts are going to show up, now you know the script.
Mm,
So like you're going to go into the next round being like, okay, like in the tight game, like we can probably expect that it's going to happen.
yeah.
So then when those thoughts happen, you're prepared with how to respond. And then because you have that in your back pocket, it's just so much easier to focus on those process goals that you've set for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So it just like makes it just reduces the amount of energy you put towards that,
Yeah. It
and
turns
then
it
allows you
into
to actually focus on performing and unlocking the level of execution that you've trained.
yes, yeah. That last layer is almost like instant. It's like preparing myself. So instead of because I know I'm heading into that situation, instead of being reactive and having to deal with the energy related to being reactive, I'm like expecting it to come. I know it's going to come. So when it pops up, I'm like, okay, I expected this. I don't have to
Yeah.
worry. Like I
Yeah.
knew
And
this
for
is going to
some,
happen.
yeah.
Mm,
And for some people, it's super helpful to almost like make it a part of their warm up routine. Where like some people, like the way we kind of phrase it is like these
mm,
thoughts are almost as routine as you showing up to the field and putting on your cleats and like doing your warm up drills and stuff. Like when you're like, if you regularly expect to play in high stakes, like competitive games, like
yeah.
you just know that this is going to be a part of it. And so sometimes creating a ritual around it can be effective, right? So if you take it a step further, it's like not just maybe it's not even just like, oh, this happened. Like oh, like I hear this voice, like, okay, like, all right, like, cool, you're challenging me, yada yada yada, move on. It's like you show up to the field and you're like, it's like you're prepping internally. It's like I know this dude is gonna show up and he's gonna say shit, and like when he does, I'm gonna be so ready for it. And
Mm,
then right, and then that just makes you so prepared for when it happens. Because the other part with the uncertainty and high stakes thing is that changes for some people. That might change within moment to moment. You know, like you might go into a game feeling pretty jittery. Maybe the team is really good, and maybe they have the worst game of your life, and you're up like 5-1, and you're like, this is great. Like all of a sudden, less stakes, a lot more certainty. But then maybe halftime comes around and they start coming back on a run. Maybe you get laid out. Maybe you get laid out D'd or you mess up a throw, and that voice is just gonna come roaring back in.
yeah.
Because what is uncertain to people is always going to vary depending on how you're performing within a given moment, but also like your own skill level.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
What was that first
yeah.
layer
Because
again?
yeah. On the first layer, I guess I didn't do a great job of like because I we started from reverse, but the bottom layer is expecting expecting the arrival um of like just like the chit chat in your
Yeah.
mind. So
Yeah.
you're expecting the arrival, knowing that's going to happen in uncertain and high stakes moments. And
Mhm.
then the second part is learning to make room for that in your mind. So instead of suppressing it, it's labeling it, giving it a voice, giving it an
Mm,
identity. So
mm,
you know how to talk to it and respond to it effectively.
yeah.
And then you don't have to listen to it. Right. Like would you listen to a fan who's just like in the stands heckling you all the time? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
probably not. But if you think that you're saying all these thoughts and doubts, it's like, oh, okay, like maybe like maybe I really should listen to that.
Yeah.
So making room for that, labeling, identifying those that chit chat, and then the last part is actually just like once you've prepared for it and like taking care of business in your brain, then it's time to focus on those action goals, on those process goals, and like actually set the goals to perform well.
Mm. Okay, okay. So to repeat back what I'm hearing, it's almost like one is in terms of the layers or the like
Yeah,
sequence of doing it. It's like one is pre-prep and expect it in those moments because you can.
yeah,
You can kind of expect for moments like that. The thing
yeah.
that I was
Yeah, no, like the way I phrase it, like it's a script.
yeah.
You know what it's gonna say. You know
Mm,
when it's gonna come.
mm.
So like, why not just never be caught off guard by it? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. That would
Yeah,
be nice. I think
yeah,
and it is possible. Okay, so it's like, yeah, know the script, read the script ahead, you know it's coming. Second
hmm,
is like knowing or making space for it in your head. I think that visualization to me makes a lot of sense where it's like
yeah,
if it's just the negative thoughts and you're focusing in on it, that's all it's going to be. But if you know that
yeah,
there is space outside of just this and this thought isn't necessarily true, it's like
yeah,
labeling it, where is it coming from,
yeah,
what voice is it?
yeah,
And then for me, I think I want to try labeling it as like the I'll be on. It's like I think the source of that self doubt is like that coaching figure in my head saying like you're not good enough. Like what the fuck are
hmm,
you doing? So it's like talking to that voice and being like that challenge kind of mindset of like nah fuck you. Like I'm gonna show you.
yeah,
Like
hmm,
nah like you're fucking wrong. So it's like
yeah,
maybe for me making that space and thinking about
yeah,
that's my response to that thought process when it comes up. And then third
hmm,
is focusing on the process goals. It's like, okay, I'm aiming for the shoulder for this game or for
yeah,
this point.
hmm,
I'm aiming to get my timing right. That's like, that makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah. And the key adjustment there is it's not that the chit chat isn't true, right? Like that coach is probably doubting you for reasons that like have some basis in
Yeah.
reality. We just have to remember that that chit chat is right. It's that evolved defense mechanism that we have, and it always goes overboard. So
Mm,
right, like that coach might technically be right, but it's like not really. Like no, like like you're way too much of a hater. So like
mm,
let's get over that.
mhm. And it's not
Yeah.
helping
So
in the moment.
recognizing that as truth, right? Because that's the part of not suppressing. If we're just like, oh, like he can't, like he's wrong. That's never gonna happen. When that does happen in a game, because as much as we would like to never throw a turnover, like that will just happen if you're a high usage player. Like it will inevitably happen.
Mm,
Then we don't want it to be a situation where it's like, oh shit, like he was right.
mm,
Like what am I gonna do now? It's
mm,
like, yeah, like okay, like like yes, like this happened, but like the voice that was like exaggerating this was like over, like, right, it's true, but it's overblown, so we don't
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
take
yeah.
it as seriously.
Okay.
But
I
yes,
hear.
so
I like
I
that
think
delineation.
that visualization piece with like the circle and like the whole mind sphere, I think is helpful.
Mm.
And then also that piece of like giving that voice like a real label and character, right? So like, right, that coach who you're just like, fuck this guy, like that's a very clear entity in your mind that you can then you can create a relationship with on your terms versus feeling like it's just some voice that's looming over you all the time.
So it's like putting a
Yeah.
label on it so I can consistently identify, get used to responding to it. So again, it's like a familiar
Yes.
entity. Okay.
Yes. And then with
Mm.
that, right, that with that visualization, you get to move that voice around in your head once there's more room, right?
Mm.
Another analogy I found in the book I read was like, so it was someone describing, it's like, yeah, like I picture my mind as like my house, and like the voice is just like someone who's ringing the doorbell constantly, and like I can either just let it continue to bother me really loudly, or I can like let him in and just like park him in the corner in a timeout chair and just like go about my day, and
Yeah.
like that works too.
Okay. I like that. I'm glad you called out that delineation too of like there's an element of truth to what they're saying. It's not like I'm trying to squash it because if I try to do that, that's actually making it worse.
It will get louder.
Yeah. But in reality, it's like it's acknowledging, yeah, there's maybe an element of truth, but also like there there is an element of truth in what that voice is saying, but the scale at which I am perceiving it to be at, if I am not like by just crushing it, it's not make it'll never go away. By
Yeah.
acknowledging it, I can label and get a distinct sense of like how big it is, how truthful it is, and then how I want to respond or apply to it in this current setting where it's probably not helpful to just like have an unaware, like to not be aware of how big it is. So it's like if I'm aware of how
Yeah.
big it is, if
Hmm.
I'm aware where it is, then it's like okay, it's a known entity. I've put a name on it,
Yeah.
I've put a size on it, I know
Hmm.
where it's sitting, so I can deal with
Yeah.
it in a proper
Yeah.
way.
And like if you're a thrower with a 99% completion percentage, which would be fantastic,
Yeah.
like then like the voice in your head that's concerned about like those turnovers, if it's accurate to scale, it's a really small percentage of what you're thinking about,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, I like that too.
If you're someone who
Mm.
you throw a turnover 50% of the time, like that voice that's telling you maybe you should be worried about that, like yes, like let's listen to that and like let's make it like, right, like let's just like work with that and make goals around that to work on your throwing so that it you get better at that and then it becomes smaller.
Yeah. The funny thing is like I'm glad you bring up the that's so interesting too because the I never thought about it too much, but like the one thing that's nice about being in the UFA is you get stats.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
know
yeah, the stats.
what is
Are
my
you looking up
completion
yours right
percentage.
now?
Yeah, I had a 96 completion percentage
Okay,
over
that's pretty good.
176 throws. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. And if you just take my first season where I was the most uninjured, because I played 12 games my first season, then 4 games
Hmm.
second season, 2 games third. I had just in my first season 149 completions on 97.4.
Okay,
So I yeah, no, if I think about
yeah,
it that I
yeah,
love the numbers. I love thinking about it that way. If like that
yeah.
negative
So
voice
yeah,
is like accurate 3% of the time. I'm like, okay, I can scale that voice to be 3% of my headspace.
yeah, and you know that your brain is working like, right, like your brain is working as a defense mechanism to blow to, right, to inflate that.
Yeah,
And
because
we
it's
and
helpful
we're yeah,
in some
right.
sense.
Yeah, it's helpful in some sense, but just like okay, like let's manage this, and then we just go on and we just do our thing.
Can I think for a second?
Yeah,
That makes so much sense. Just the 3 steps. Like step one is to almost like expect it or try to I wonder like the Michael
you
Jordan
plan
like
for
and
its
I took that
arrival.
personally. Yeah, like I feel like is there an element too of like let's say I'm going to practice and it's a practice where maybe like 15 people show up. So again, it's not a
Yeah,
situation where you would feel pressured like compared to, in a tournament where it's like
yeah.
a semifinals game. Like does the purpose is the purpose of the Michael Jordan, like I took that personally. Like is he manufacturing that kind of pressure? And like like that's where my head goes. Like, does it manufacture the
Mm,
pressure in those lower stakes situations?
mm.
And then like when it comes to the bigger stakes actual situations, like you're just more used to it. Like you have more reps in
Yeah.
it. Is there
Yeah.
value in trying to think about and
I think
manufacture
this
it?
framework is more helpful to people who like struggle with who struggle with competitions, but in practice they're usually pretty good.
Hmm.
I guess I'm kind of curious if you felt that like you've had more nerves and more of this mental chatter like during practices, or if this is something that predominantly just shows up during games and
It's mostly during games.
tournaments.
Mostly during games and tournaments.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So in practice, I would just be less worried about this unless it becomes an issue, and then if it does, we can just talk about it next time. But at practice, right, you can just continue to set effective goals, and like if you're having a particularly bad practice, then like then there's a lot of uncertainty in that moment, and we can kind of deal with it there. But and you can like focus on mindfulness, but like the reality is, I would say for most people, practice is a fairly low stakes environment.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are going to be different people in different scenarios where practice is going to be perceived as more high stakes.
Yeah.
And in that case, you're more likely to have those tournament problems replicate at practice. But if it's not an issue for you, like there's no real need to like worry about that right now.
Okay. As a point, just to note for future, I'm gonna
Yeah.
try. I want to see. I'm gonna try to make a note. Maybe if you could
Yeah.
check in, that'd be awesome. But like at
Yeah.
practices, if it feels low stakes to me, I want to see how I respond to like trying to manufacture it. Like I took it personally, just to see if I can put myself in a headspace of like dealing with more uncertainty, so I can
Yeah.
practice being in that headspace, dealing with it, or like game time, like tournament time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think like one thing you can do at practice is just set higher standards for yourself. Like practices are usually easier, like
Mm,
you're playing less people, so defenses are more tired. Like you're practicing concepts and sets. So like another thing you can do is just simply be more intentional about your goals at practice as well. Right. So um keeping mindful of like what you're trying to accomplish at each practice and just holding yourself to a high standard there. And usually that's enough. Usually people aren't, especially in the frisbee world, people aren't very good at like setting goals at practice and
mm,
following them.
mm,
um it's easy to forget those things, especially in a sport where there's a big social element alongside the performance element, and so practice is both like a place to play and like nail down your
mm.
concepts and get better, but it's also a really important part of your social life, and so there's a mix of like you're having fun too. And so a lot of the mental performance stuff can like really easily be forgotten during practice. So
Okay.
even just like working on that last step of like, let's set goals, let's hold myself to a high standard, that can honestly be enough to like just keep you mentally engaged and like focus on productive stuff during your practices.
Okay. Cool. So to
Yeah.
recap again, it's like that first layer is be able to expect or recognize when I may feel that pressure or that have that negative voice pop up.
Hmm.
Second is make the space for and label that voice, be able to respond or move it where I
Yeah.
want to. And then third is once it's moved to somewhere, focus my attention on the process related goals that are in my control.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, nailed it
cool.
there. I would say for expecting its arrival, you can also do some work, right? Taking that page from the book from the second step of like you can make rituals or like create scenarios in your mind that help you expect it ahead of time instead of just being, oh yeah, I know it's coming today. And having a more concrete metaphor or label for it can be helpful. Like one example is like an athlete I worked with um, in volleyball. Like they basically like they struggled a lot with the performance anxiety part, and so going into game day, it was like um, it's pretty much just like her routine was journaling before like on the bus to a game, just to be like, right, like we're just gonna write out like I know what it's gonna say, so like I'm just gonna anticipate it to move ahead of time. So like I'm gonna like look at the thoughts and I know it's coming and I know it's overprotective and overblown. And then I have like the thoughts and the goals that I know and like that I'm going to just write
Mm,
over them. So then
okay.
when they show up, it's like, all right, like we're just gonna cross you off in my mind.
Okay. I really like that. The other last
Yeah.
piece that that is reminding me of is after talking with Elia Bonet about some of the
Hmm.
visualization pieces. Like I have this set breathing thing that I do before each point. One thing that was really
Hmm.
helpful that he reminded me of or trying to do was the visualization piece too. So for me, it's like thinking about I always wear a hat. So my physical trigger or cue is like I'll just like push down the hat a little bit, take the
Hmm.
deep breath, and then just go back to this mental image of a clear sky that I always imagine with my mindfulness
Hmm.
things. That's
Yeah.
really helpful. And what that reminds me of, or how that relates to those three steps, I think, is like it's like the thought that occurs when I'm playing in those serious situations before too, when I take those steps, is I can remember like, oh, I feel the pressure, I'm aware of it now. It's like that step two. It's like I
Yeah.
see
Hmm.
now I can
Yeah.
even better with this framework, I think, identify that pressure of voice and just put it where I want to put it. So
Yeah.
that I can
Hmm.
focus on again, like, okay, I'm playing under pressure, cool. Let's focus on what I want to focus on in terms of processing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think like such a big, which like I think you've summarized it really well, and like we can kind of talk about goals and like how you want to game plan this. Um, but like something that I hear so much from honestly players of every sport is like, oh, like what do you do to prepare for a game or a tournament or a race? And it's like I just try and distract myself as much as possible. Like I can't think about this, and it's like that might work for your warm-ups, but like going back to the uncertainty part, you will mess up at some point, like, and it's just gonna come back even harder. So like
Yeah.
the fact that you will be able to acknowledge it and be mindful about it, and then like have that capacity to label and then box it, put it somewhere, and
Mm,
acknowledge it is so much more useful than just trying to bury it.
okay. Cool. That's really helpful. Thank you. I I'll let you know. I'm excited to let you know at how this
Yeah.
shapes up when I play next
When's
or
your next tournament?
I think we have not for a while. We actually just have
Okay.
nationals coming up for Canadian
Oh,
nationals in
nice.
like 2 weeks,
Yeah.
2.5 weeks.
Okay. Nice.
So I won't have any opportunities other than a couple practices to get some um I don't think I think yeah, now I can even just think about like yeah, when we know who we're
Hmm.
playing. I think I could probably visualize or watch film of teams that we're playing and then just kind of get a sense of like, okay, this is what the pressure this is the
Yeah.
situation that
Hmm.
this is these are the situations on the field that I'll be in. I think I remember I can look up the fields that we're playing on too and I can put myself in that spot.
Yeah.
I can think about what is that voice, who
Hmm.
is that voice, label it, walk through that process and just leave it
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. Because watching those high intensity games, that can also put you in that mindset that might replicate those thoughts too.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and like one thing that some athletes do is like they do some really intense visualization on like the venue they're going to be playing at. So then
Yeah.
when they
Yeah.
go there, they are like already used to it. It's like, okay, I've already succeeded here in my mind.
Mm. In terms of action
Yeah.
items for me, what I think I want to do is like there's three pieces. One, individual reps. I want to get in those reps for me. Whether that's a
Hmm.
stationary target, hopefully I can toss with somebody and have a moving target. That'd be great. Second is at practices, again, have that higher standard mentality, and that can challenge me a bit
Hmm.
more. And then the third thing I think is doing that visualization practice because I've never done that to game prep, but for this tournament, because I won't have tournament reps
Hmm.
before that, that would I would really be interested to see how I respond. I think I'm
Yeah.
already thinking.
Yeah, and I would say for visualization, like with the reps, just keep it short and simple. Like you don't need to visualize a whole point. It's just like quick couple seconds of action. Because another thing is, if you're practicing visualization correctly, it is incredibly demanding on your attention span. You
Okay.
should be entirely consumed with creating the image as vividly as possible in your mind. So like
Okay.
knowing how the or the grass feels under your cleats, like being able to hear that, right? Like being able to feel the sun or the weather or like the jersey and the kits that you're wearing and how it feels on your skin, how you're breathing,
Wow.
like pretty much like all those senses, like that makes it real, which then convinces your brain that it's like an
Mm,
actual thing you're doing.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And then making sure you have the routine we talked about in mind. But yeah, I think those are good things. Yeah, I don't know how long this is supposed to go for, but I feel like we've accomplished a good amount. And then
Yeah.
there's also, you mentioned like the flow state, and I mentioned the flow and the clutch state stuff, and I think there's plenty more for us to explore. So like I think we're this I feel like we're in a great spot right now. So
Awesome. I'm glad.
yeah, it was good that like right you came in and you were like, I don't know what to talk about. You know, like what should we do? Or it's like, what have you been
Yeah.
struggling with lately? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. Like maybe it's not a lot. And like once we just start thinking and like we look for those patterns, there's always stuff we can kind of dig up and like work on and improve at that.
Yeah, sweet. I think maybe I will again, I'll record a clip afterwards as well, but I guess just for context reiteration, I'm really excited to continue with chatting with you with these sessions because I think the way that I want to document it in terms of just content, living life, whatever, I just want to show the process. And I think that this
Hmm.
mental kind of related training will hopefully be helpful to the people that are watching. But also, I think it's just a really nice documentation of like, this is what the process is like. This is what I'm going through right now. This is where my headspace is at.
Hmm.
So I'm I'm really excited to continue to have these sessions and then just to post and see what folks see and like find value. I hope it's helpful.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, again, like we mentioned, the Dr. K videos are both of our inspirations, and like
Yeah. Yeah.
I found a lot of
Those
value
are
in
fun.
those, and I hope
Hmm.
that these are also helpful. But I'm also just gonna
Yeah.
keep the mindset of like the way that I can be the most helpful to some people is by speaking authentically to my problems instead of trying to abstract and say like this is what I think most people would think about. I'm just no, I'm gonna say it from the headspace of like
Yeah.
this is what I'm dealing with. Like this is what the negative
Hmm.
thoughts or whatever are in my head and
Yeah. Hmm.
try to deal with it as best I can.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
it's helpful.
And also like we can talk more about visualization in the future. I'm like such a
Sweet.
it's like one of the it's always a skill I try and teach my clients in the beginning because it's just like so um it's such a good skill to like be able to do as like for relaxation, execution, and then also just like helps you build in and execute so many concepts. Like when we talk about the mental side, sometimes it's so abstract, and you mentioned like having a way for your mind to see it helps you so much with being able to like
Yeah.
understand and then gain control.
Okay.
But yeah, no, this is great.
Can I ask
As
one
for
more
like the
quick
self,
question?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
If I wanted to learn, or if anybody wanted to learn about the visualization piece too, because I'd love to ask you about it, but even
Hmm.
before that too, I would want to maybe do some more research. Like, is there any book or source that you'd suggest reading more about visualization?
Mm. Um, I I am blanking on the textbook that I did most of my reading from on it, but there's a lot of resources online. Um, I would say look towards resources um, from, I guess, sports psychology resources. So articles from the Applied Association of Sports Psychology, or
Hmm.
ASP for short, is a really good starting point. A lot of like high profile sports psychologists and mental performance consultants just like post basic articles with like the ABCs of how to do things,
Okay,
including
cool.
visualization. So like those are good. Um, I guess visualization in a more clinical psychology type of space is more often used for like relaxation, um, versus performance related stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but if you're interested on that end, you can also do that. But I would say those are some good resources. There's a lot of stuff online on YouTube, which sometimes is trustworthy, sometimes not. So
yeah.
it's up to you whether or not you're going to trust that. However, what there is a cool example. If you go on YouTube, the New York Times has a really cool video playlist. It's like 6 videos long. Um, and it's they basically ask athletes to like walk the camera through like their mental routine beforehand, and there's usually a lot of visualization where like they're narrating it and they add in like a really cool animation and sound effects, and it's just like a really good example of seeing an elite athlete walk someone through how like what they're visualizing,
Okay,
and it can kind of give you the details of like, okay, that's how I do it, like I like it's like those kinds of details are the things that work.
yeah. Okay, gotcha. And then
Hmm.
the last piece too for folks that maybe want to learn more about you and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is there is there anything that you want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
mention?
yeah. So I have an Instagram. It's called spiral.mentalperformance, I believe. So we offer individual services, so like team sessions, which are it's like really similar to what we just did here.
Mm.
We just like hop into a Zoom. We chat for around an hour. We talk concepts. We set goals. Um, like we check in periodically. Uh, it's pretty flexible in terms of how often you want to see us. So sometimes people see us like once a month, once every couple months. Other people, it's like every week for a certain amount of time to get more support. So it's pretty flexible on that end. And then for teams, we also do team workshops. So those are pretty helpful to teach, like, right, like it might be a workshop on visualization to like a
Yeah.
whole team just to teach a single skill or a single concept.
Yeah.
And then we also like work with leadership and consult them on how to actually apply those concepts to the team. So we do those things. You can be found on social media. Um, if you're interested but don't know if like it's worth paying for yet, but you still want to get a taste, we also do free consultations like for 50 minutes. Those are found in the link in our bio where you just sign up for a quick chat. So I always like those, just getting to know people and where they're coming from. So like if you're worried about it, whether or not it's worth it for you, it's always worth just like reaching out.
Sweet. I'll toss all the links in the
Oh
descriptions
yeah.
as in.
Hmm.
Well, thank you again, Marshall, for
Yeah.
the time. This is I have a lot to think about. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I guess this went over like so normally we just do an hour with our clients and
Mm.
went over